Good evening, fellows, and a very warm welcome to our IELTS training session. So welcome back to where we left off. So far, we have talked about the general overview of the IELTS reading module, and on top of that, we've also talked about matching features yesterday. So today, we're going to be talking about matching information. Matching information is basically a component of the reading module in which you basically have a reading passage and you have some information that you actually have to go through, and after you go through that information, you have to just go through the questions in the at the end of the passage and try to deduce the right answer. To get the things kick-started, we're going to be doing screen share, and we'll be looking at a certain extract of a training passage, a reading passage for the topic of matching information. Without further ado, in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most beneficent, the most merciful, let us begin. uh, there we go. I hope everyone can see the screen fairly well. IELTS reading task type 4, matching information activity sample task, the motor car. That's the topic. That's something that you should always focus on and underline, and because that will actually help you understand what the topic is all about, what the passage is all about. So in this case, the entire information that you're going to go through, that's on the basis of the motor car. Now, we'll first start by going through the paragraphs. We'll read them in depth. And if there's any difficult word, we'll try to understand the meaning of that word. And once we have understood all this information properly, then we will attempt to answer the questions at the end of this passage. The very first paragraph, paragraph 8, there are now over 700 million motor vehicles in the world, and the number is rising by more than 40 million each year. The average distance driven by car users is growing too, from 8 kilometers a day per person in Western Europe in 1965 to 25 kilometers a day in 1995. This dependence on motor vehicles has given rise to major problems, including environmental pollution, depletion of oil resources, traffic congestion, and safety. Depletion means consumption, utilization, which results in a decline in the number of available oil resources. So, moving on to the next paragraph, that is paragraph B. While emissions from new cars are far less harmful than they used to be, city streets and motorways are becoming more crowded than ever, often with older trucks, buses, and taxis, which emit or release excessive levels of smoke and fumes. This concentration of vehicles makes air quality in urban areas unpleasant and sometimes dangerous to breathe. Even Moscow has joined the list of capitals afflicted by congestion and traffic fumes. Afflicted means to be negatively affected. Okay. In Mexico City, vehicle pollution is a major health hazard. Moving on to the third paragraph, paragraph C. Until 100 years ago, most journeys were in the 20-kilometer range, the distance conveniently accessible by horse. Heavy freight, by heavy freight we mean heavy luggage, heavy cargo, could only be carried by water or rail. Invention of the motor vehicle brought personal mobility to the masses. In other words, it facilitated the movement of a large amount of people from, let's say, point A to point B, and made rapid freight delivery possible over a much wider area. In the United Kingdom, about 90% of inland freight is carried by road. The world cannot revert back to the horse-drawn wagon. Revert means to go back. The world cannot revert to the horse-drawn wagon. Can it avoid being locked into congested and polluted ways of transporting people and goods? Paragraph D. In Europe, most cities are still designed for the old modes of transport. Adaptation to the motor car has involved adding ring roads, one-way systems, and parking lots. In the United States, more land is assigned to car use than to housing. Urban sprawl means that life without a car is next to impossible. Mass use of motor vehicles, meaning massive utilization of motor vehicles. Mass use of motor vehicles has also killed or injured millions of people. Other social effects have been blamed on the car, such as alienation and aggressive human behavior. Alienation, the phenomena of being cut off from the society, being a hermit, getting adrift, right? Paragraph E. A 1993 study by the European Federation for Transport and Environment found that car transport is 7 times as costly as rail travel in terms of the external social costs it entails. Entails means consists or comprises of. Congestion, accidents, pollution, loss of cropland and natural habitats, depletion of oil resources, and so on. Yet cars easily surpass trains or buses as a flexible and convenient mode of personal transport. What is the meaning of surpass? Surpass means to exceed. In other words, cars are more popular than trains or buses when we talk about a flexible and convenient mode of personal transport. It is unrealistic to expect people to give up private cars in favor of mass transit. By mass transit, we mean mass public community transportation. Paragraph F. Technical solutions can reduce the pollution problem and increase the fuel efficiency of engines. But fuel consumption and exhaust emissions depend on which cars are preferred by customers and how they're driven. Many people buy larger cars than they need for daily um, purposes or waste fuel by driving aggressively, right? You could say too much alcohol. Besides, global car use is increasing at a faster rate than the improvement in emissions and fuel efficiency, which technology is now making possible. Paragraph G. Some argue that the only long-term solution is to design cities and neighborhoods so that car journeys are not necessary. All essential services being located within walking distance or easily accessible by public transport. Not only would this save energy and cut carbon dioxide emissions, it would also enhance the quality of community life, putting the emphasis on people instead of cars. Good local government is already bringing this about in some places, but few democratic communities are blessed with the vision and the capital to make such profound, in other words, significant changes in modern lifestyles. Paragraph H, last and final paragraph for this passage of matching information. A more likely scenario seems to be a combination of mass transit systems for travel into and around cities, with small low-emission cars for urban use and larger hybrid or lean-burn cars for use elsewhere. Electronically tolled highways might be used to ensure that drivers pay charges geared to actual road use. Better integration of transport systems is also highly desirable and made more feasible by modern computers. But these are solutions for countries which can afford them. In most developing countries, old cars and old technologies continue to predominate. All right. So in total, we have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, 8 paragraphs for the motor car. And now that we have gone through all this information in the passage, it's time for us to come to the question side. So questions 14 to 19, right? So there are 6 questions that we have to answer in regards to this passage on the actual examination, right? Obviously, you have a total of 40 questions, but this is just a sample extract that I've taken. So just to give you a basic, fundamental and rudimentary understanding as in how to tackle the arena of matching information, right? So let's read it. Sample passage 7 has 8 paragraphs labeled A to H that we just read, right? Which paragraph contains the following information? So we have some information that is given. In fact, we have 6 different snippets of information, and we have to match each information with the respective paragraph in which we can find that particular information. I repeat, we are given 6 different pieces of information. We have to look at each data set and see in which paragraph can we find that respective information. Therefore, we have to match the information with the subsequent with the corresponding paragraph. So, which paragraph contains the following information? Write the correct letter A to H in boxes 14 to 19 on your answer sheet. And B, nota bene, you may use any letter more than once. Now, what that actually means is, every question will have just one answer, as it says over here, write the correct letter. However, there is a possibility that 2 or more questions might have the same answer. All right. So that being said and done, let's look at the different questions that we have. Question 14, a comparison of past and present transportation methods. Now we have to go at the reading passage and look and see which paragraph contains this particular information. Okay, for example, if it's paragraph B, we'll simply write the answer B in the answer section. Okay, so first we'll just read out the questions, then we will individually look at each question and try to tackle it in depth. Okay, so 14 is a comparison of past and present transportation methods. 15, how driving habits contribute to road problems. 16, the relative merits of cars and public transport. 17, the writer's prediction on future solutions. 18, the increasing use of motor vehicles. 19, the impact of the car on city development, right? So first of all, let's try to, now one more thing that I want to say, in the case of matching information, the answers to the questions may necessarily not follow chronological order. If you went to the presentation that we covered a couple of classes ago, I said that there are two cases in which the chronological order is not always followed. So this is one of them, okay? Matching information. Now, ideally, how do you solve these type of questions? Okay, every instructor, every professor, every tutor, every teacher will give you his or her own method. What actually helped me is the section was that I used to take one particular question, for example, number 14, a comparison of past and present transportation methods, and then I actually comb through all the paragraphs of the passage. In this case, 8 paragraphs. I used to go through each paragraph one by one. Then I used to trace that particular information in the paragraph that I wanted, and then I used to give the answer. Okay, so in this case, for example, just saying if you have to find the answer for question 14, so what you can do is you can just individually reach each paragraph in detail and ask yourself that in which paragraph does this particular information lie? And this is precisely where the art of summarizing paragraphs, making short notes next to them really helps you, because when you make short notes after reading the paragraphs, you kind of get to know what the basic gist of the paragraph is, and that really prepares you for the upcoming questions and finding their answers. So without further ado, let us go back to the passage. We are interested in finding the answer for 14, a comparison of past and present transportation methods. Now we want to see in which paragraph does this information lie. So now, fellas, in this case, obviously, since I've done my research, so I will be jumping to the paragraph where I feel that the answer is. But when you're reading this the first time yourself, okay, what you can do is sometimes, if let's say you are short of time, okay, ideally the thing would be to go through all the paragraphs in depth, skim and scan, read them in depth, scrutinize them properly, make short notes. But sometimes, only in the event of an emergency, what you can do is you can just focus on the first line and the last line of the paragraph. Sometimes, not every time, all right, these are exceptions, not norms, but sometimes the first or the last line of the paragraph also helps you in extracting your information. So if I were to read paragraph 3, until 100 years ago, most journeys were in the 20-kilometer range. So a century ago, this distance was mainly covered by horse. Heavy freight could only be carried by water or rail, and then you move on to the present day, where the invention of the motor vehicle brought personal mobility to the masses and made rapid freight delivery possible over a much wider area. So in this case, clearly what is happening is it's a comparison of the past and present transportation methods. Therefore, we can say that the first information does lie in this paragraph. So we can assert that the answer for question 14 in this case would be C for Charlie. Okay. Number 15, how driving habits contribute to road problems. Okay. Now this is once again, right, you just need to underline the keywords in the question statement: driving habits, road problems. Okay, driving. Okay, just see where you find that and just try to identify that particular paragraph. Okay, so in this case, over here it says that many people buy larger cars than they need for daily purposes or waste fuel by driving aggressively. So this is the answer for question number 15. Okay, so anyways, that being said and done, let us move on. Number 16, the relative merits of cars and public transport. The relative merits of cars and public transport. By relative merits, we mean a comparative analysis of cars and public transport. By comparative analysis, we mean pros and cons. Okay, and basically we're looking for a paragraph in which comparison is being made between cars as well as public transport. Okay, so let's go up and see where we can find that particular information. Let's look at paragraph E. A 1993 study by the European Federation for Transport and Environment found that, that car transport is 7 times as costly as rail travel in terms of the external social costs it entails: congestion, accidents, pollution, loss of cropland and natural habitats, depletion of oil resources, and so on. Yet cars easily surpass, in other words, they easily exceed trains or buses as a flexible and convenient mode of personal transport. It is unrealistic to expect people to give up private cars in face of mass transit. In other words, mass transit means large-scale public transportation. So clearly, Paragraph E was a comparison between cars and public transport. They were doing the pros and cons of both categories. So in this case, we can assert that 16 will be E for example, elephant, okay, or epilepsy. Uh, Number 70, the writer's prediction on future solutions. Future solutions, as in what possible solutions can be achieved in regards to the motor car in the near foreseeable future. Okay. Now, some people in this case would be tempted to say that the answer is lying in paragraph G, that some argue that the only long-term solution is to design cities and neighborhoods so that car journeys are not necessary. But guys, remember one thing over here. It's not just about the keyword. You also need to figure out the meaning. Okay, you also need to read the question properly. In G, it is saying, some argue that the only long-term solution is to design cities and neighborhoods so that car journeys are not necessary. Some people. Is the writer saying that the only long-term solution is to design cities and neighborhoods? No. He is just citing the opinion of certain people, but it's not the same as his opinion himself. Now, if we are to look at paragraph H, it says, a more likely scenario seems to be a combination of mass transit systems for travel into and around cities. A more likely scenario, it means he is just doing a speculation. He's speculating about the future. So he's just predicting a future solution. Now, who has written this paper? Who has written this article? Obviously, the writer himself, right? So when it says a more likely scenario seems to be, that is the writer suggesting his future take on the particular matter. Therefore, you have to be very sure that you read the question, which in this case says the writer's prediction on future solutions, not some people's prediction on future solutions. So in this case, for 17, the answer will clearly be H for Harry. Okay. Thank you very much. Next up, number 18, the increasing use of motor vehicles. I'm trying to look for a paragraph that contains information in regards to the increasing use of motor vehicles. I guess it's safe to go out on a limb and say that that paragraph A is providing us with the answer to that question. There are now over 700 million motor vehicles in the world, and the number is rising. In other words, increasing by more than 40 million each year. The average distance driven by car users is growing too, from 8 kilometers a day per person in Western Europe in 1965 to 25 kilometers a day in 1995. This depends on motor vehicles, blah, 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 right? So they're talking about two things: increase in the number of motor vehicles that are being driven all over the world, as well as increase in the average distance that is being driven by these car users. In both cases, the statistics actually talk about increase in the use of these cars, right? Therefore, the answer for 18 will be A for alpha, okay? Number 19, the impact of the car on city development. Ever since motor vehicles have come into the frame, what effects have they had on development of cities? How has the design of the cities been modified or altered or shaped with reference to these motor vehicles, right? The impact of the car on city development. So over here, oh, sorry for that. Just let me zoom it out a bit. Okay, better now, I guess. All right, so the impact of the car on city development, right? So if you look at paragraph D, in Europe, most cities are still designed for the old modes of transport. Adaptation to the motor car has involved adding ring roads, one-way systems, and parking lots. In the United States, more land is assigned to car use than to housing. Urban sprawl means that life without a car is next to impossible. Okay. However, I just have to merely look at the first and second lines to figure out that I found my answer. Okay. Adaptation to the motor car has involved adding ring roads, one-way systems, and parking lots. So this is clearly talking about the impact of the car on city development. So ever since the motor vehicles have been introduced, what has happened? They've had to add ring roads, they've had to add one-way systems, they've had to create more parking lots. Therefore, the answer for question number 19, the impact of the car on city development will clearly be D for delta. Okay, so I really hope that going through this passage and discussing and brainstorming for answers will help you get a knack of what matching information consists of and how you have to go about it in terms of deducing the right answers. Um, some people reach out to me saying that could you also share the snaps of these answers. So even though I try to discourage that, because once you know the answers, it kind of becomes a pointless ordeal trying to go through the exercise itself. But nonetheless, giving you the benefit of the doubt, fellas, these are actually the answers for the passage that we just did, that I just did with you all, right? 14C for Charlie, 15F for Franklin, 16E for epilepsy, 17H for Harry, 18A for Alpha, 19D for Delta, okay? So we'll just, as far as the contents of the reading agenda are concerned, we'll just keep it all here. That being said and done today, I'll just give you your dose for the 10 spellings. So without further ado, let us look at them. The 10 spellings for today. There you go. Okay, because see, it's very daunting, it's very intimidating at times to improve your English language. Okay, and the best way to improve your English language is to, start from the basics. Okay, it's kind of like learning how to hold a spoon. It's kind of like for a toddler learning how to walk for the first time in his or her life. Sometimes we feel that what, it can be that basic, the English language. We should actually be going through, I don't know, thesis papers or research articles in order to improve our English. No, it's based on the incremental model. Okay, so trust me when I say sometimes working on your tenses, working on the prepositions, working on your grammar, working on your spellings, working on your vocabulary, these are some pretty much simple and basic steps that really end up going a long way in helping you cement and boost your understanding of the English language. Okay, so I'll give you 10 spellings for today. Obviously, some of these words, right, you might have not come across them before, which is exactly the purpose of this drill, to give you new words that you haven't really heard before or said before or used before in your daily speech. Because obviously, like I said before, like a broken record, true learning is all about coming out of your comfort zone. Sorry for that. So so apologies. So our 10 spellings for today, our first spelling is cacophony, CACOPHONY. Second spelling is frigid, FRIGID. Third spelling is atonement, ATONEMENT. Fourth spelling is, let's zoom it in. The fourth spelling is affluent, as in rich, wealthy, AFFLUENT. Fifth spelling is perpetual, PERPETUAL. Sixth spelling is jarring, JARRING. Seventh is discordant, DISCORDANT. Eighth spelling is deafening, DEAFENING. Ninth spelling is vivacious, VIVACIOUS, and the 10th spelling is auxiliary, AUXILIARY. All right, so these are our 10 spellings for today. Next time we move on to our 5 daily words with meanings and sentences. So let's just go on with that. Mani, I'll be back in just 2 minutes, okay? Thank you. Thank you. These are our 5 words for today. So the first word is cacophony, as we also went through in the spellings list, okay? That being said and done, okay, so cacophony basically means jarring sounds, a harsh, discordant mixture of sounds that appears unpleasant. Okay, discordant means, jarring means unpleasant and very loud. So a sentence out of that could be, they were greeted with a cacophony of deafening alarm bells. They were greeted with a combination of extremely loud and noisy alarm bells. That's the meaning of deafening, okay? Extremely noisy, extremely loud, extremely unappealing. They were greeted with a cacophony of deafening alarm bells. That's the first word for you. Second word for today is frigid, FRIGID, frigid. So frigid means, it has 2 meanings associated with it. One could be very cold in temperature, okay, if you associate it from a temperature context, or the second could be more abstract in nature, lacking imaginative qualities. So the first one could be frigid water, as in very cold, ice chilly water, or you could say lacking imaginative qualities. The frigid songs of today, as in the boring, unappealing, unenticing, mundane songs of today, are a testament to the decline of the music industry. The frigid songs of today are a testament to the decline of the music industry. Third word for today is atonement, A-T-O-N-E-M-E-N-T. Atonement basically means the action of making amends for a wrong or an injury. The action of making amends for a wrong or an injury. Okay, trying to redeem yourself, in other words. Atonement means to try to seek redemption. A sentence out of it, a proper compound sentence out of it could be, having tarnished the company's reputation in the market, having destroyed the company's reputation in the market, that's the synonym for tarnish. Having tarnished the company's reputation in the market, Robert submitted his resignation as an act of atonement, as an act of redemption, as an act of making up for what he did wrong, okay? So that's the meaning of that. Having tarnished the company's reputation in the market, Robert submitted his resignation as an act of atonement. Then the fourth one is affluent, which we also went through when we were doing the spellings. Affluent means having a great deal of money. In other words, being wealthy. So for example, the affluent societies of the Western world. This is not really a compound sentence, but just to give you an indication that this is what we're talking about. This is the meaning of affluent, that is rich, very wealthy. Then you have the fifth word for today, the fifth and final word, that is perpetual. So P-E-R-P-E-T-U-A-L, perpetual, okay? Perpetual means occurring repeatedly, so frequent as to seem endless and uninterrupted. Okay, so perpetual means something that happens repetitively on and on, over and over again, frequently, so as to seem endless and uninterrupted. Sentence could be, their perpetual financial struggles had sucked all the harmony and joy out of their lives. Their perpetual financial struggles had sucked all the harmony and joy out of their lives, as in their constant, repetitive financial dilemmas had basically made life a living hell for them. There was absolutely no more harmony or joy for them. Okay, so these are our 5 words today with meanings and sentences. You have cacophony, frigid, atonement, affluent, as well as perpetual. Okay. So thank you. So moving on to the very last component of today's agenda, that is the 5 idioms with meanings and sentences. So without further ado, let us just go on to that. Here we go. Just let me zoom it in a tad bit so that everyone has an adequate amount of exposure to the screen. The 5 idioms for today. The very first idiom is whittle something away. Okay, whittle something away means to make something gradually decrease, reduce, decline, or diminish in value or amount. Okay, to make something gradually decrease in value or amount. A sentence could be, in which we use this idiom to understand the context of it, inflation has steadily whittled away with savings. In other words, what is inflation? An increase in the general price level. It has decreased our savings because expenditures and prices have gone up. You know, they have absolutely hit the roof. That is another idiom in itself, hit the roof. Inflation has steadily whittled away with savings. Second idiom for today, loom large. Loom large means something that is worrying or frightening, something bad that appears inescapable, inevitable, or fundamentally unavoidable. Okay, loom large means to be worrying or frightening, something bad that appears unavoidable. A sentence could be, the possibility of civil war loomed large on the horizon. Okay, the threat of civil war was something that appeared unavoidable. Third idiom for today would be to hang fire. To hang fire means to delay something. Obviously, it's virtually impossible to hang fire. So, so when you're trying to hang fire, you're desperately trying to delay something from happening. An idiom, a sentence out of it could be, the advertising campaign is hanging fire until they decide how much to spend on it. So they've actually temporarily suspended the project till they figure out how much it's going to cost them. Okay, and then they're going to mobilize that again. So the advertising campaign is hanging fire until they decide how much to spend on it. The fourth idiom for today is flavor in the month. The fourth idiom is flavor in the month. Flavor in the month means something that is temporarily popular, not for a long period of time, just for a particular instant, okay? So something that is temporarily popular. A sentence could be, this rap artist is pop music's current flavor of the month. This rap artist is pop music's current flavor of the month. Fourth idiom. Fifth and final idiom, fellas, 0 hour, right? 0 hour, the time when what's gonna happen is gonna happen, right? When shit goes down, just like Samuel Jackson would say. The time when something important is to start. A sentence out of it could be, the Air Force planes waited until 0 hour in order to begin their bombing mission. The Air Force planes waited until 0 hour in order to begin their bombing mission. All right. So that pretty much caps today's discussion, right? So we talked about matching information, we brainstormed and did the analysis of the questions, came up with the answers, and also we discussed 5 words, 5 idioms with meanings and sentences, not to mention 10 spellings. I really hope, fellas, this video was helpful. Please keep on, liking my channel. Please keep subscribing. Please keep spreading the word around. And if you ever have any queries, you'll find yourself, your queries will be most welcome to me. Okay, and I would love to actually do all I can to resolve your agendas. So thank you very much for the love, fellas. Stay blessed, all of you, and hopefully catch you all soon. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.